Perfect. Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, see what's coming at you. And today, as you can see from the thumbnail, the title, whatever, what's up with SWAC refs, man? Like, I've been sitting on this topic for a long time. I thought about doing it during football season, but I always say I'm more of a basketball guy than anything. So I it bugs me to watch SWAC basketball and watch the referees do what they do. So we're gonna talk about my thoughts. I did some research and we're gonna talk about that today. Um, Also, don't forget to hit those socials: Facebook at SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. Also, email swagtalk76 at gmail.com. I'm still working on my all-time top 5 quarterback shows from each school. So I done got some suggestions from some of the homies from their school. So if you want to give me some names from your favorite school, you can hit me on my Twitter. You can hit me in the DMs on Twitter or email or any other team that you like. If you want to throw a name out there or two and a little blurb or some stats that you might know about that guy, I want you to go ahead and do that too. It'd be much appreciated. Also, as you know by now, I'm writing for bustingbrackets.com. I got another article dropping this week. I'm going to be talking about the lack of big men in SWAC basketball and I did some research on that, so y'all can check that out. That's going to be coming later this week. I'll have that linked on my Twitter account, all my socials, so you can hit the socials and see when that drops. And if you haven't read my other articles, man, why don't you go ahead and check those out too? It's been doing pretty good, if I must say so myself. Still gonna cover some basketball here, but a lot of my basketball content is gonna be there, especially with football. Still kind of kicking. You got signing day like in 2 weeks. You got the Legacy Bowl coming up. You got coaches searches completed. You got all kind of stuff scheduled still dropping. So there's gonna be a lot of football stuff here. Most of my basketball stuff is gonna be there. Some will be here. So if you like to listen to me talk about basketball, it'll still be here. But if you want to read what I say about basketball, then you can go over to bustingbrackets.com and check that out. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Like the video, share. Feel free to comment your thoughts on SWAC refs. I know a lot of people probably got some thoughts, so feel free to share those. So let's go ahead and get into this, man. After all that housekeeping, first and foremost, I respect the job that referees do. Refereeing any sport is a difficult job, especially nowadays. Things are faster. The game is faster. Players are bigger, stronger. There are some things, especially in basketball, that have kind of changed a little bit. That kind of influence the way games are called. Going back to the younger levels on up. So it's tough. I ref like one basketball game in my life, and I was like, this is not my thing. So I know that this is a tough job, and this is not necessarily it's to call out what I think is bad officiating, but it's not to say that there aren't any good referees out there. There are some very clean call games, and some of those calls are justified because some players they get a little too physical. Some guys they can't dribble as well as they think they can. They can't make those moves they think they can make, and so some of those calls are justified. I'm not saying that any call, I'm not saying that every call is a bad call, because that's a pet peeve of mine I have as a fan, is when other fans blame everything on the officials. Sometimes there are bad calls, but sometimes your guys make mistakes too. So, it can, go either way. A lot of what I'm talking about today is things that I saw with my own eyes that I feel like are a pattern in the league. So what I wanted to do first and foremost, I wanted to make this not after a Southern loss because I didn't want nobody to say I'm complaining about the referees because my team lost, which I don't do. I typically put the blame on my own team first and foremost before I put it on the refs. But I wanted to not do it then because I didn't want to make it seem like it's a reactionary thing. There are a lot of bad calls even in games that my team has won, so I wanted to kind of do it that way. And I also wanted to kind of look at some of the numbers from some games to kind of get an idea because when you add a game and you're watching a game on TV or you there watching in person, especially if you're following a certain team, a lot of things can get skewed in your mindset because you're focused on the team and you're focused on winning and things that don't go your team's way. They kind of stand out more. So I wanted to kind of look at some things and get an idea of is there, an issue on, in terms of the numbers and then balance that out with my thoughts at the end. So what I did was we have played most teams have played like 6 or 7 games in conference play right now. So that's like three of that's we're like in the 4th weekend of SWAC basketball. So I went through each weekend, Saturday and Monday games, and picked 2 games at random basically, and looked at the number of fouls for each team, the free throws, you know whether the team who won shot more free throws or the team that lost. I also listed the score and the scoring by half just to kind of get an idea. I as best as I could, I found the names of the referees for each game. Some games didn't have refs listed on the box score, so didn't really do a lot with that. But first, I wanted to point out that of the 14 games that I did, there were 3 referees that worked 2 games in those 14 games, and actually 2 referees were on the part of the same crew in one game, and the game that these 2 referees worked, um, that game had a ton of fouls. It had 48 fouls and 58 total free throws. Um, Looking at the other game that they worked apart from each other, those games had 30 fouls and 43 free throws and 31 fouls and 49 free throws. The other so the other referee in the 2 games he worked, they had 30 fouls and 43 free throws, and then 43 fouls and 50 free throws. So as you can see, though these refs maybe have a title whistle because they were a part of basically 4 different games that had multiple, had 40 plus fouls and over 50 free throws. So, maybe these guys have a title whistle, or maybe they work games that were a little bit more emotionally charged. That's something. There's a lot of factors that you kind of have to take into account, other than just the number of fouls. Sometimes you have to look at the game itself. Sometimes in a rivalry game, things get a little bit more physical, get a little bit more heated. Sometimes in a game that's a blowout, maybe there aren't as many fouls called, especially late because you're trying to, get up out of there. But there's multiple different factors, and then in tight games, you're gonna have more fouls when the losing team is trying to catch up. They got to try to foul or stop the clock. So you're gonna get a free throw discrepancy in a close game. And we did have one game like that on my list, and that was Pine Bluff and Bethune-Cookman. They played on Monday, and that was a 76-72 victory by Pine Bluff. Um, that game was tight pretty much throughout. Um, it was a 37 excuse me, it was a 37-35 lead by Bethune-Cookman excuse me. It was a 37-31 first half lead by Bethune-Cookman. Pine Bluff outscored them 45-35, 43-35 in the second half to win 76-72. And when Pine Bluff pulled away late, Bethune-Cookman had to foul. So Pine Bluff shot 6 free throws in the last 3 minutes of that game because Bethune-Cookman had to try to stop the clock and try to extend the game. So that's one of those situations where you can basically X out anything, because in that game the fouls were even at 18. Bethune-Cookman shot 23 free throws. Pine Bluff shot 20. Both teams shot shot the bulk of their free throws in the second half. 16 for Pine Bluff, 11 for Bethune-Cookman. Now, Bethune-Cookman did shoot 12 first half free throws, which kind of probably helped them build that first half lead to 4 from Pine Bluff. So, that's kind of a difference, but not enough to be a big issue. One game that stood out to me, and it's definitely not because my team lost, because when you blow a 15-point lead and lose by 17, you got way more problems than the referees. But when Southern and Grambling played, there weren't a lot of fouls in that game. There were a total of 40, but Grambling shot 34 free throws to Southern's 20, including 18 in the first half. When Southern had their lead, Grambling was able to chip away in the first half from the line. When you're trying to come back, that helps a lot. Southern only shot 6 free throws in the first half, 14 in the second half to 16 for Grambling. So it wasn't like a ridiculously huge difference, but when you look at one team being able to score with the clock stop and the other team not, then that definitely can impact the game. But this game was won because Grambling played tremendous defense, and Contavious Dozier had 27 points, and Southern shot horribly from the field after the first half. So nothing the referees did really change this game. Grambling probably could have won this game the same way, even without the difference in free throws in the first half from between the two teams. And some of that is because Southern doesn't always play aggressively going to the basket, so you're not going to draw a lot of fouls if you don't drive to the lane. So Grambling made it a focus point, and the referees rewarded them. So that was not a game that was a reason why I did this, but I wanted to point it out. That was probably the biggest free throw discrepancy of any game that I had on my list. And it still wasn't that crazy. There was a lot of other factors that played into that game. One of the things that I noticed when I did this, the most fouls in any game was 48, and obviously the most combined free throws was 58. That's a game that was just that they were whistle happy. And then the fewest fouls I saw was 25. And you're gonna see games like that where teams play clean. They don't really, play handsy on defense. They don't, drive to the lane with reckless abandon and pick up dumb charges. Not a lot of moving screens and stuff like that. So, you can have a clean game. These referees are not incompetent. They just are. Sometimes I think they just don't really make the correct call all the time. Sometimes I think, the game moves a little faster than than the human eye can catch sometimes. So you have those problems. So I didn't really want to make this a hit piece on the referees, because I think that they do a good job for the most part, and they catch enough hell in the arena. I don't need to pile on, but the one other game that stood out to me, and it was wait, I'm gonna look at that no, I can't find that doggone game. Um, Uh, let's go ahead and go into my findings, because it's not really it wasn't really anything that was like super crazy. But my basic opinions and findings is that there wasn't nothing really egregious in terms of free throw discrepancy. Nobody shot like 40 free throws and other teams 12. It wasn't like the NBA where a team can shoot like 43 free throws and the other team can shoot 16. It wasn't nothing that huge. I think the biggest difference was probably like 10 or 12 free throws between teams. And there wasn't really a huge difference in fouls between the two teams. I think the biggest difference the biggest difference is one team end up shooting more free throws. They're getting the bonus earlier than the other ones. Like, I didn't list this game, but yesterday's Southern Pine Bluff game, Pine Bluff shot a ton of free throws in the first half. Southern didn't shoot their first free throw until 7 minutes into the first half. Pine Bluff was able to get to the lane and draw fouls. Some of those fouls, guys, were cases where guys fell and referees, whistled it, which, if you knock a guy down, obviously it's a foul. But sometimes guys slip and they call that. Or, sometimes they just miss a call, and guys know how to initiate contact now. Guys know how to influence a call now. You drive in the lane, you whip your head back, you make it look like somebody hit you. If the referee is not fully locked in, he sees the head go back, and he thinks it's a foul. Now, I will say on the player side of this, you have guys who foul bait, and I do appreciate the fact that a lot of SWAC refs don't reward that. Because you going driving to the lane and you flailing all over the place and throw the ball up. I'm glad a lot of SWAC refs don't reward foul baiting. Um, so that's something that could impact the game. If you did that enough, you get to the line enough, that could make a game look worse. But one of the things that I did notice, and this is something I've noticed for the last couple years, is the refs do seem like they can try to influence momentum. A lot of times it's not for the winning team. Um, Especially in first halves of games, if a game gets out of hand, you will start to see the ref call more fouls for the team that's behind. And if they're making their free throws, you know, that can really, shorten the lead. I mean, if you're shooting the bonus 1-and-1 within the first 10 minutes of the first half, that's kind of a problem. If you're in a double bonus before, before the 10-minute mark or the 8-minute mark of the first half, that you're shooting 2 free throws for the rest of the half. And that can really change things, especially if the other team kind of hits a lull and you can kind of creep back in on free throws. Um, you don't really see that a lot late in games. You see it a lot earlier in games, especially for the losing team. Now, one of the things that they will do is if you don't take advantage of those calls that they give you, you'll start to see those calls go the other way. And that's when you can see a lead start to stretch back out, because if missing a bunch of free throws, or you're not scoring on those opportunities when you have to inbound the ball after a foul, and the league, you can't really chop it down, then they're not going to call a lot of things for you anymore. And then they'll start to either not call anything, or they'll start to call more fouls against you to send the winning team to the line a bit more. You don't really see, like I said, you don't really see a huge difference in free throws and blowout games, though, once you get past that even out point. So my opinion, basically from attending SWAC games, and I've been, going to a lot of games, mainly Southern games because I live in Baton Rouge. So just, that transparency. Most games I go to are Southern games. I do watch other games on TV, but, being in person, you kind of see things a little bit better than you can on TV or on YouTube or whatever. Refs they make a lot of calls late. They'll make a call. If a guy drives to the basket, he throws it up. And there is a little contact. Sometimes they wait. And sometimes they pull that old playground move, where you drive and you throw the ball up and you watch and see if it go in before you call your foul. Sometimes you'll see that, and then sometimes the foul won't be called until the guy hits the floor. And sometimes I feel like it's not necessarily that the call is bad, because sometimes there is contact. But I think the problem is more that the call is late, or maybe it's a reach in and the ball gets knocked loose, and another team grabs the ball, and before they can start the transition, that's when they blow the foul. Or anything like that. Late calls can kind of make the crowd restless, and that makes the calls look bad because you didn't call it when it happened. You called it late, or the guy who's in position to make the call doesn't make it, and another ref across court makes the call. That's something that always sits with me. And I'm the kind of person, if I'm watching the game, I'll call, I'll say, oh, that was a bad call against, that was a bad call for my team, and that was a bad call for the team that they're playing. I won't argue, but sometimes I'll just say, like, man, they let us get away with that, or why are you gonna call it now? So my philosophy in the game is I want it just to be even. If you're gonna call a tight whistle on one side, call it on the other side. If you're gonna let guys play and let guys get handsy, then let it be on both sides. If you're not gonna, call, pushing off anything in the lane, or guys, dribbling with their hands out like they're 4 years old, then let it go both ways. And I think that consistency is my biggest issue with the officiating. Like I said, they are really lax on travels, which is kind of a basketball thing nowadays. You'll see guys take multiple steps. You'll see guys get kind of jumbled up a little bit, and stutter step their way across the lane, or sometimes even out on the perimeter. You'll see these kind of things, and sometimes they call it, sometimes they don't, and it can impact the game, especially in a tight game. If a guy tucks the ball under his arm like he's playing football, and he's taking those extra steps. But some of that is the way basketball is nowadays. So I try not to put too much into it because that's kind of what it is now. But it still is a rule, so it needs to be enforced. They do allow a lot of physicality, sometimes to I won't say extreme levels, but sometimes to big levels. They allow men inside to push off. They allow them to hook guys. They allow them to kind of elbow on offense. And like I said before, they allow the ball handler to dribble with his hand out like he's 4 years old, swatting away defenders and things like that. Sometimes they'll call it. A lot of time they don't. And it's really bad when the guy makes the shot, because then you basically allowed him to do whatever he needed to do to get in the lane. And some of that is lack of technique by the players. Some guys, there aren't a lot of skilled guys inside in our league. So you will see guys who get the ball and they're just trying to do anything that they can to go back up with it. They don't know how to create space. They don't know how to, they don't know how to post up. They don't really know how to shoot, fadeaways. They don't know how to, shoot a nice little baby hook inside, or even, an up and under move to get them a layup. They don't really have those post moves. So you'll see a lot of, jockeying in there to kind of make it happen, because they're trying to hurry up and shoot the ball as quick as they can, because they don't really want to handle it. Sometimes you can be really physical. And then, like I said before, sometimes they don't allow any contact. And it's glaring when you see it on both ends. You'll see a guy go down the lane and get hammered, miss the shot, team go down the other end. Before the guy can get to the 3-point line, a guy reaches to swipe the ball away. He makes a little contact, it's a foul. It's just not that consistency. If you're gonna let guys play and let guys be physical, then let it go the whole game. If you want this to be, Detroit Pistons old school basketball, hack a shack type stuff, then let that be what it is. If you're trying to make this be a beautiful game, and let's keep the game flowing, and let's stop all the reaching and everything, then keep it tight. But consistency, like I said, that's my biggest issue with anything. And one of the things that I really don't like is that a lot of times these refs let the games get out of control. Basketball is emotional. SWAC sports are emotional. You look at SWAC football, you look at basketball, women's basketball, baseball. There's a lot of trash talking. There's a lot of back and forth in every sport. I've never seen as many people talk trash in baseball as I have in the SWAC. And basketball, the same thing. It's gonna be heated. You have rivalry games. You have important games in the standings. You have teams who trying not to lose a lot of games. You have teams with something to prove. You have a lot going on in games, and sometimes instead of nipping it in the bud early, like when guys get to join and it's looking more than just just general trash talk. Instead of maybe teeing somebody up, or teeing a double tech on both sides to kind of calm this thing down. They let it go until you get late in the game and guys are pushing and shoving. I think you can control those situations better by not letting the emotion get so high. Once it gets high like that, it's hard to bring it back down. And then that's when you really do have to text somebody up before something happens. So you really want to make that situation not be as bad. And they can directly influence momentum. Like I said, if they make 2 or 3 calls against somebody, get a key person in foul trouble, or they let a bunch of things go, and then all of a sudden now they want to be strict. You can influence the way that goes. And that ties into what I said earlier about sometimes the losing team gets to shoot more free throws. They have a big hand on momentum sometimes more than they should. The last couple of things I have is, I said this one a little bit earlier. A lot of times, referees are out of position. The referee on the other side of the court makes the call that the one standing right next to it doesn't call. They don't always really work as a unit. You kind of see, guys doing their thing. They want to be the man, and they make all the calls and overrule guys. And my final one, and this is something I appreciate the fact that they do it, but I think they overdo it sometimes, and that's unnecessary replays. I believe in replays on late in games, turnovers, changing possessions, or like a really hard foul, or maybe a guy made a three and had his foot on the line, or so things like that. I don't need you to constantly be running to the table to look at whether a offensive foul, a moving screen where the guy fell hard was a flagrant foul or a common foul. And I know some of that is the rules, and some of that is the way that they're supposed to do it, but it still, to me, slows the pace of a game down. You have to constantly be over there looking at the replay on things that don't really impact the game to any real extent. So if they could just cut that down, I think that would make things a lot better. So I just wanted to come through and share my thoughts on this. Like I said, I know a lot of people fuss about SWAC referees, and officiating is a tough job. I know people that are officials on different levels, and I try to appreciate and respect what they do. But when things aren't right, you still have to call it like it is. And I think SWAC refereeing it can be deplorable at times. And you ask anybody to watch a lot of SWAC sports, they're gonna tell you that. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on that, and just go from there. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC signing out. I'm gonna catch y'all on our next edition of SWAC Talk, and I'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.